why I didn't grieve my trauma, why I couldn't grieve my trauma. And here's something really interesting. Most of us can't. Most of us can't go to those really dark, deep, pertinent places, those places where we feel so much pain, where we feel so much turbulence. We can't grieve our trauma. Here's the interesting thing. We need to. We need to grieve what we've perceived to have lost. We need to grieve what's been taken from us. We need to grieve what we've given away. Now, this is really interesting, and if we don't, we get stuck in this cycle of not knowing who we truly are, and we become stuck in this cycle, this vicious cycle of repeating the same patterns that we're familiar with. Why I couldn't grieve my trauma was one simple reason. I was too scared. I was too scared to go back into the trauma. Most of us are. Most of us are too frightened to re-experience that pain that we once felt. We're too scared to feel the fullness of that experience again, so we suppress it. We put it in a jar, we pack it in the jar, we put the lid on very tight, and then we put this jar in this safe, then we put the safe in a house, we lock up the house, and we forget where the house is. A comedian once said on this, I wonder who's going to pay for that later that I love. I wonder who is going to pay for that later. Someone that I care about deeply. We can't suppress our stuff anymore. And the truth of it is, the more we do that, the more we distance ourselves from a full life. We distance ourselves from something that is important to us. And that's what is important, pardon my words, I'm jumbling them. What is important is freedom. Freedom is important. And the way we get to freedom is to feel the fullness of who we are. We don't play in the fractured self. We don't ignore what we need to address. Why I didn't grieve my trauma was because I didn't allow myself an opportunity to. I thought somewhere in my being that I wasn't able to neutralize those events. I wasn't able to look at them with a new lens, a fresh lens, a new perspective, a perspective that granted me freedom from that pain, from the anger, from the frustration, from the deep sadness, from the feelings of rejection, humiliation, and abandonment. When I was younger, I didn't have a very stable home environment. The emotional stability of my home environment was very volatile. And so experiencing that over and over and over and again wasn't something that was desirable for me. In fact, it's not desirable for anyone. And so what we do is a coping strategy when we're young, when we're children, we develop these coping strategies to deal with difficulty, to deal with pain. One of them is suppression. Another one is, depending on what your trauma or your wounding is you'll behave in a way that gets you what you need to feel safe. And sometimes at the expense of our moral grounding. And let me give you an example. For me, I would be at home and I would be experiencing the violence or the aberrance or the abuse of my father. And I figured out that if I could stay really quiet, if I could stay silent as a young child, I figured out that the chances of me being hit, the chances of me being abused, the chances of me being yelled at or screamed at or told that I was wrong or shamed would be lessened. And so that became a habit for me. That became a coping strategy. Now, as a child, that was effective. But in the real world, not in the real world, sorry, but in the real adult world, because we take these childhood coping strategies and we bring them into our adult world, and into our adult relationships, that didn't work very well. Because what happened was, as a result of silencing myself, I minimized what was important to me, I lessened the value of that, and I maximized others. So I prioritized the needs of others as opposed to my own. As a result of that, I didn't allow my authentic voice to come through. I didn't allow my needs to come through in relationship. As a result of that, I cultivated resentment. I blamed and projected upon the other because the ego doesn't like to take responsibility for the self. The ego doesn't like to say, well, hey, you're silencing your voice. You have an opportunity to speak up, but you're not. That, as a result, made me be aggressive because I was so frustrated. I had no healthy outlet because I did not know what I was doing. And so I'd just be angry all the time. I'd be aggressive all the time. Maybe not all of the time, but most of the time, particularly in my relationships. and I would blame others. And so I was building this resent. Now, as a child, being silent was really, really helpful because it helped me survive. It helped me stay safe. As an adult though, carrying over that strategy unknowingly didn't help. Now, until I was able to grieve my trauma, go through a process of feeling my feelings, getting angry in a healthy way, feeling the fullness of the sadness, really allowing myself to feel and heal in a safe place, surrounded by support, professional support, support of friends, people that cared about me. Until I allowed myself to grieve my trauma and feel my feelings, then I could move into deeper states of compassion. Then I could move into deeper states of forgiveness. Until I was able to do that, I was unable to grieve my trauma. And if we cannot grieve, we remain stuck in cycles of the past. If we cannot grieve, if we do not allow an opportunity to grieve our pain, we get stuck in cycles of the past and we bring the past into the present. Everything, every experience that we have that is challenging in the present is amplified by negative, deep, traumatic experiences that we've had in our past. And we do this because the brain just wants to remain safe. The body wants to remain safe. So it over amplifies. It predicts a more of a worst case scenario. And then what happens is we take it out on those that we love. We take it out on ourselves, depending on our personality types, or both. And so we're in this constant state of losing. We're in this constant state of loss. We're not really connected to who we are, our truth. And we put these barriers and these walls up and we cut our intimacy in relationships. And so instead of experiencing depth and intimacy and support and safety and love and relationships, states and feelings that are desirable, we experience loss. We experience isolation. We experience more abandonment. We get more of what we have experienced as children because that's familiar. And familiarity is comfortable and comfort is safe. And so we're always pursuing safety. Now, what we can realize, if we just allow ourselves to feel, and it's not an easy thing to do, but if we allow ourselves to feel the fullness of our pain and our trauma, we grieve our trauma. We go through the stages, we go through the process, we honor that process. We cease to be stuck in the past and we begin to see a new reality, a new possibility, because we're layering those old memories with new perspectives. We're seeing them through a different lens because we're allowing ourselves to grieve. And we have that opportunity to do that. And we are empowered. We don't need to give our power away to anyone to do it for us. We have the opportunity to create that for ourselves. And to me, that's true empowerment. That's not false. That's not superficial. That's just real empowerment. We have an opportunity to grieve our trauma and not bring it into the present. Not be triggered so much by the past, but rather be more present to what is unraveling in the now. And that's an opportunity for growth. That's an opportunity for healing. And when we do that, we give everyone else in our lives that matters an opportunity to also heal. And that's a gift. And in fact, I would say that's our duty as human beings, is to clear up anything that is infiltrating the present, anything that is impacting the present in a negative way, in a way that is stunting us and holding us back, pulling us back from our potential. That's the opportunity we have. But we can't get there without taking ownership and responsibility for everything that we've experienced. When everyone wants forgiveness and everyone wants compassion, we can never get there unless we grieve what we've lost, unless we grieve our experiences that have been really painful, instead of suppressing them, ignoring them, and pretending they haven't existed. And the only way to really be compassionate, step into forgiveness and love and open up our hearts and be resilient is to feel our feelings. Not an easy feat. Took me many turns, many times around. My invitation to you is to feel your feelings in a safe place, in a place where you are supported, where you can grieve what you've lost, what's been taken away from you, what you've given away. Power and blessings to your journey. Thank you so, so much.